I remember you saying one thing back at camp, and you said like, the biggest mistake early bow or first time bow hunters make is they rush everything.
I'm coming around the hill and everything's up and grazing, so I'm thinking I'm going to see, with the exception of maybe a pig, I'd see whatever goats are around. But yeah, those two of those grey buggers were bedded down behind a bush, and I literally got 6 meters from them, and they jumped up. I was like,
And they're all looking at this other goat. So I'm like, sweet, next arrow, draw, shoot, hit, vertically hit. And I'm like, okay, next arrow, draw. And I took another shot. I'm like, okay, sweet. I'm like, I'm done. I'm like, who's up?
This week's episode is brought to you by the legends over at Dog and Gun Coffee. And this episode in particular, I talk about going out to a new block, and I took the farmer a packet of the preloaded drip filters in the Samba Brew, the one that I absolutely love and adore. It's a nice strong coffee, and I knew Josh, the owner, was also a coffee lover, so taking him a bag seemed like a no-brainer because he's always out in the field doing farm work in general. So how good is it to have incredible coffee while he's out in the field? And you too can do that as a little gift for the farmers that you're visiting, because it is really nice. If they're giving their generosity, why not do some generous acts for them as well? And coffee is something that will be amazing for anyone. Any coffee drinker knows how much they love a coffee in the morning, in the mid-morning, at lunchtime, in the afternoon. And I think it's just really cool to have great coffee on hand no matter where you are. Anyway, you guys can use the code BOWHUNTER and get $10 off your next order at Dog and Gun Coffee. That code, once again, is Bowhunter. Give it as a gift or keep it for yourself. You'll want to probably do both because it's absolutely incredible. Bowhunter will get you $10 off your next order at Dog and Gun Coffee. This week's episode is brought to you by the legends at Cayuga Broadheads. And on this hunt that we're about to talk about in the podcast, we all use Cayuga Broadheads. We had a mixture. Adam was using the old schools on his recurve bow. I had the Trizot and the pilot cut with the bleeder blades in my quiver, and then Jordan was rolling with the pilot cuts without the bleeder blades, and we all took critters and we all saw them act incredibly, incredibly fast. I think what is really cool is just seeing how effective these broadheads are. They're sharp when they come out of the packet. They are stainless steel, so they're not going to rust when they're in your quiver. They're not going to rust when you get some liquid in there. And they're just very highly effective. They're accurate when you shoot them. What I really love in particular is just the damage that they do. And I mean that in the sense of when you hit a critter, it gives you great confidence that it's going to do exactly what it needs to do in opening up a big wound channel. And if you've done your part and hit directly where you need to through the vitals, you're going to watch that animal go over in sight. And many times over this weekend, we watched animals drop within like 10, 15, 20 meters of where the shot was taken. And that is just, I guess it gives you great confidence in your gear, which is something you want. You want to make sure that you're not doubting anything when you're taking a shot, and that's why I love Cayuga Broadheads. And you guys can get 10% off of your next order when you use the code BAB10. That will get you 10% off your next order. BAB in caps locks with the numbers 10. BAB10 will get you 10% off of Cayuga Broadheads.
Hey there, and welcome to Becoming a Bow Hunter. I'm your host, Matty, and join me and our guests as we take the quality of meat back into our own hands, searching the wild for free-ranged animals to harvest as ethically as we can. I interview a variety of specialists from the bow hunting community to help fast-track your journey as a bow hunter. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this chinwag on one of your favorite topics in the world, bow hunting.
Legend, what is up? Welcome back to another episode of Becoming a Bow Hunter. This week's podcast is a hunt recap, and we are in the car, so the audio might be a little muffled or you'll hear the car rumble, obviously. It was on the drive home that we actually got a chance to record the podcast, and it was a trip where we got to take Jordan out for his very first bow hunt ever. This is like the ultimate fast tracking of his experience, where essentially we got incredible access. We took him out. We had many opportunities to get him his first few goats, and it was just like a really great way to introduce him to bow hunting, but also just show him these are like the ultimate things to think about. And it was very interesting because Adam, who we took as well, who's on this podcast as well, is a recurve hunter, and myself being mainly a compound, but starting to dabble a little bit with the trad bow. It was interesting kind of giving him both elements of both sides with the styles of hunting that we really use. What I am completely 100% convinced of after this weekend is that bow hunting definitely changes lives. It's incredible what it does, what it offers us as humans. And it's just really interesting to see what just 2 or 3 days out in bush can really do for you. And watching someone unwind so quickly, watching them just adapt to nature and just feel so in tune with themselves and with what we, I guess, is very primitive to us. It's just a very cool process to kind of watch it all unfold. Massive thank you does go out to Josh. We do give massive praises within this in general, and you'll hear more about that and throughout the podcast. But really, Josh, thank you again. I know you listen to the podcast, and from the bottom of my heart, man, I am so grateful to you. But this episode is going to be awesome for anyone who's new to bow hunting. Good for anyone just that likes to hear about what goes wrong on a hunt and how you can fix it, and thoughts and processes around what we could have done better when things didn't go right. And hopefully that can help you out when you're stalking on an animal, when you can start to go through a process of, am I checking A to Z in regards to my stalk? Is everything set up? Is everything going the way it's meant to go? And I mean, you can't necessarily always plan for all outcomes, but if you can start to, I guess, hear these things and then put it in the back of your mind of, well, remember this could happen or that could happen if this is to go the way that they have talked about previously, I think it can be very insightful and hopefully help you to fast track your stalking abilities and your hunts, just like we were able to do for Jordan this weekend. Anyway, lots of really cool insights, lots of very fun stories, and some really cool hunting experiences for all parties, not just Jordan, but for all of us. We had literally one of the best days hunting that I've ever had, which is just, it was such a cool experience. Anyway, here it is, Mr. Jordan de Jong and Adam Barter.
Alrighty, bow hunters, welcome back to another episode. We are sitting in the car on the drive home, so there might be a bit of mumbles, there might be a little bit of an echo because of the microphone system we're using. Apologies if that's the case, but we have just had an absolute ripper of a weekend. We planned to sit around the fire and do this, but we just had pretty much action going the whole time. So in the car with me, I have first-time guest, Mr. Jordan de Jong. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for an amazing weekend.
Right, it was incredible. And then returning guest, Mr. Adam Barter. So we have just spent some time in the New England area, just south of Inverell, and we went out let's start. When I met Jordan a while ago at a mastermind, probably end of last year at a mastermind. And I just got talking about the podcast, and he was like, bro, that's fucking incredible. I would love to learn how to do bow hunting one day. And then there was another guy that I met at a mastermind as well, who said that he would be keen to come on a bow hunting trip. And because the boys both knew each other, I was like, well, heck, let's tee it up. Let's make it actually happen. And so I gave the boys kind of like 6 months in the lead up to it to get their bows, get everything sorted, get practicing before we went out for our first proper hunt. And we booked a property, and essentially what happened was farmer Josh reached out to me and said, hey mate, I've got some goats that need to be thinned out if you'd like to come here at any point in time. And I just said, I was going to come very close to you around this time. What are your thoughts on us popping there? He said, yeah, that sounds amazing. Why not come across? And been absolutely blown away by Josh and Josh's generosity. He's been absolutely incredible for us this weekend. Just his block was just so well set up and just a really cool place. Very beautiful part of the world, that's for sure. And so eventually what happened was one of the boys, the other guy who's not here, he pulled out a few weeks ago. But in the lead up to it, I said to Adam, I don't know how it's going to go. All three of us just tailing each other the whole time. Why don't you come and then we can split off into 2 groups of 2 and then hunt different parts of the block as we get going. And it just gives us more opportunities each rather than having to go 1-1-1 or 1-1 essentially the whole time. And so it just worked out well that there was just 3 of us and we ended up going pretty much not quite 1-1-1, but essentially like there was parts where Adam would break off, parts where That was not it. Yeah, that's what you but yeah, so to set the story straight, well, actually, Jordan, tell us about what you kind of thought coming to bow hunting. I mean, we were a little late with getting set up for the bow, and getting you kind of prepped for this week, but what were your thoughts, I guess, prior to coming on the hunt?
Yeah, I was pretty excited. I'd only really been hunting once before when I was a young kid, maybe 4 or 5, and I just remember it being, a full-on weekend, and, you kind of have to chase and hunt these things, but they're only using rifles. It's really funny. I've got like this history of, I'm a massive gamer, and every like medieval game that I used to play, I'd always like choose the longbowman or like a hunter type character where you'd have a bow. And so for me, bows have always been something that I've really wanted to get into, and I've never really like archery. I've wanted to try, but never really given it a go. And so when I met you and had the whole concept of bow hunting, I mean, obviously I'd heard it before on Joe Rogan and podcasts like that, but never had met anyone that I knew personally who could kind of line it all up. So my expectations were really high. I was really keen to get out there. Number one, I love camping and getting in the outdoors, which I don't do enough of. But number two, also watching you guys in action. And, I'm really grateful to have you as a friend, Matty, in the business arena, but just to see you in action and see everything that you do and the morale that you bring to people and how everyone loves you in this space is incredible. Like, I feel super honored to have been able to go out with someone like you rather than like have to pay and go out with someone random or something like that. So I had a low bar of expectation in terms of what it was going to look like. I thought maybe, every now and then we might get onto a goat or might see a deer somewhere. But the location that we're at this weekend was just incredible.
Yeah, I kind of said to Jordan, like, where I hunt normally, if you see a deer in the day, like, that's a good day. If you see one deer, you've had a good day of hunting, essentially. And, like, if you get a stalk or two, like, that's a great day. And if you get a deer on the ground, that's like a rare opportunity, essentially with the bow in particular. And so going on this trip, when I was talking to Josh in the lead up to this hunt, he was like, yeah, no, we've probably see 100 fallow a day and probably see 60 to 100 goats a day. Like, the property is definitely pretty loaded with critters. I knew we were in for a good fun weekend, that's for sure. And then we drove in on Thursday night. Thank you for your kind words, by the way, Jordan. But yeah, drove in on Thursday night, got in at probably 10:30, 11, and as soon as we got to the block and we started driving in, we saw critters just everywhere throughout the block. We're like, yeah, we're in for a great treat. And it was funny because Josh had kind of laid out the drive that we had to do on his block. He drew it out for us on the maps and told us that we would definitely miss the turn off to get down to the hut. And so when we got to the turn off down to the hut, we saw it and we're like, he said it was going to be too obvious. Like, it wasn't going to be too obvious. So we left that one and kept going, missed it completely, ran into some more fallow, turned the car around and figured out that was actually it. So drove back down to the hut. And it was a sick little setup. It's kind of like a garden shed set up with a side-by-side off the side that someone has built themselves, that Josh then acquired, right? Like, what was it? Maybe like a 6x3 as a shed?
Oh, yeah, probably 6x8 even.
No, I mean, sorry, 6x3
the garden shed, yeah, with the beds in it. Yeah, yeah, easy.
Probably another 5 meters off the side that they put the side-by-side on.
Yep. Just to quantify, when we came in the dark, it was all those goats on the hill, probably more than a dozen we saw with the limited light we had. But the moon was pretty big. But there was a pig as well. So that's all. Yeah, that's always gets you excited.
Yeah, it's a good starting point, that's for sure. And Josh, being the legend he was for this whole weekend, he actually did topo maps of the whole place and showed us where the good places were to hunt. He's like, in the morning I would go here and colour the different animals based on where they would be.
The patterns
of what he's kind of found at the time that he's been there, which has only been 18 months, he said. And then, it gave us the same sort of thing, a topo map, the pictures, the paintings, the different colours based on where we should go in the afternoon. So he was always going to come up and meet us mid-morning on the first day, which is our Friday, and we were still going to go out for a hunt the first thing in that morning. So we went and tried to do his little deer walk, and sure enough, we saw a fair few fallow. Like, we actually got onto fallow.
What, 1,200 metres, if not less?
They were 1,200 metres, not even 1,200 metres from the hut, essentially.
No.
And then we walked straight up the hill, and they were pretty onto us from word go.
Yep.
I think they actually saw us coming before we even got to where we were.
Yeah, they had the high ground advantage. Yeah.
Yeah, looking down at the hut, pretty much on us as we were walking up the hill. And so as soon as we just as we found them, we watched them for a little bit. And we tried to make a little bit of a play. They were pretty much out of there. And then we came into the actual depths of where he said, like, this is where it's really good for seeing fallow. And not on our block, but on the opposite block, we could just see, I would say 100 fallow on that face, just about right, like 60 maybe.
Easy. And what that's what you could see. And there's so much
Yeah, that was just the open
blackberry
face
and
glass.
stuff, and you watched them graze and disappear in there, so you know what you see is the tip of the iceberg, really. So quite a mecca.
And then we came around the edge and had like our first big mob that we bumped into. That was probably another 6 to 8 down in the gully there above the water.
Yep.
And what happened there? I can't remember. Did we try to make a play or they just moved off?
Nah, they shifted off.
They just shifted off, yeah, because it was just kind of that time of day when the sun was coming over.
Yep.
And they were just shifting back into their thicker areas, essentially. And so we walked up to the top. We tried to keep as high a ground as we could. We walked up to the tops, and it's kind of gorge country with a hillside on either end of it. And so we decided that it'd be a good idea to go into the gorge country and walk around to the other hilly side where we saw all the goats that night when we drove in.
Yeah, which is the access track in and out, which is halfway up the slope, which is probably 30 degrees. Is pretty steep.
Yeah. And so we were walking along the gorge country road. We weren't that far in. And you said, as we opened the gate, you said, I just heard a goat.
Yeah, but my ears are shot.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I do trust my gut. I'm like, keep your eyes open. And we went another 100?
200 maybe.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I saw this little goat just up on the hill, just munching. The white goat, so shiny and sticking out, which is lucky. But yes, eating some tree leaves. And so, Jordan, this is your first stalk, essentially. Take us through what it was like.
My first encounter, yeah. So I've been practicing all week with Matty. Dropped off a bow earlier in the week, and I've been practicing all week at sort of 20, maybe 30 if I'm lucky, and everything was on target. But essentially anything that you do beforehand just kind of goes out the window, because I was watching my arrow tip, or actually Matty was watching my arrow tip as I was putting it on. It was shaking left, right, and center. So I could definitely feel the adrenaline pumping.
What was his first words to you?
Just calm down.
No, get an arrow on.
Oh yeah, get an arrow.
It was funny because we saw them, and then they started moving down. They were going to walk down onto the road where we were on, and if they came out where we were, you wouldn't have had a shot. So I was like, we got to hustle here, bro. So I'm like, arrow on, let's go. And I just stormed ahead, right?
Yeah, so crouched ahead with it. It was my first stalk. I hadn't seen anyone else in action. Like, obviously we'd seen deer and all that sort of stuff, but never really stalked anything or hunted anything. So I just wanted to listen to as much as you would guide me through and take me through, which you were amazing at. But because they kept coming closer and closer and closer to us, I just stood still. I didn't really know what to do or what to anticipate. And lucky I had you as a bit of a guide to tell me what to do.
Yeah, it was interesting. They essentially did a 270-degree turn on us. They were going straight down the hill, and then they ended up doing, almost a complete turn back to us instead.
I got a good video of that stalk, so you'll be able to throw that up.
It was good. I mean, as a concept for me, and what I did wrong for you, Jordan, was that I pushed you around the outside of me to put you in front of me.
Yeah.
And so you ended up just slightly off to my right, and I was tucked right into the ledge, and you weren't tucked right into the ledge. And that's when he came out around, pretty much when he did his U-turn and came back to us. That's when it was a bit problematic, because he's like, oh, I haven't seen that on the road before. You kind of stand out a little bit more if you're out in the open. You weren't even that far out in the open. It was just more so than what you could have been.
It was crazy to see like the demeanor change as soon as he noticed there was something out of order, like something that they hadn't seen before. Like,
yeah, they tense up, right? And like,
it was just crazy. They were both cruising, nothing, and then as soon as they eye you off, it's just like this. They just stare at you, and you don't know. Like, I didn't know what to do or where to look or put my head down and keep it up. Lucky you provided all the camo, so we were camouflaged. But even then, they noticed, right? And yeah, I think it started. What did it start making noises at us or something?
I don't think he spat at all. I don't think he did the little sneeze. But he had his friend come over the hill, and the friend was like, "Oh, something's up." Like you could tell he didn't know what was going on, but he would look at us. And then look back at the friend, he's like, "You sure?" And then like look back, and it was just kind of funny to watch them both. But yeah, I think I was just whispering sweet nothings to you, like, just stay still. Yeah, all good. You'll get a shot. It's all good. Just wait.
But yeah, eventually they were like, yeah, no, there's definitely something up. We'll move on from here. And so we ended up going up after them after we gave them a little minute. They trekked off pretty quickly and made their way up the hill. So we started going up, trying to find them, but ended up coming into some more fallow. And by this stage, Adam had gone up higher than what we were. Adam tuned the recurve, likes to sit back a little bit further sometimes. So if we bust anything up and they run along the hill or along the face or up the face, he then gets an added shot. Does it ever work for you?
Yeah, you're great. You're like a gun dog. You flush everything out for me.
Have you ever shot anything based on that approach?
Yeah, I remember the first time I tried it was down at that pig block you and I have been to twice now, and you were going into that thick stuff, and I was like, well, I'm not going to follow you. And so I thought, I'll skirt out, because we knew there was pigs, and you were trying to trail them. You could hear them, and you were trying to get up their clacker, and I was like, well, what I'll do is I'll drop out, because surely there's going to be something sneaky that tries to like get out and around, and it totally worked, but I was just a minute too late, and he crossed that little gully and then ducked up out of there. But other times I'm sure it's worked. I just can't think of anything specific right now. But
I mean, it almost worked in our favour this time. We actually came across a fallow on the ridge that we were walking on, and I just told Jordan, "I'll sit down here," and they were at 80 metres, and I was about to start bump shuffling along, and then all of a sudden he looks up the hill. I'm like, what the heck's going on? What's the noise up there? And probably, I don't know, how many fallow did you push down to us? 9, 10?
Yeah, about 10.
They just start running down the hill at us. I'm like, uh-oh. And then they pause up because they saw us. And then they're like, not sure what to do. And eventually they just run off. But one of them pulled up at me, probably like 30 metres. I just wasn't ready to get a shot off on him.
I thought you had advanced quite a bit further. So I thought they're just going to run right over the top of yours.
Yeah, no, because we found the fellow, we ended up pausing for ages. But essentially, they just ran off around the gully, and we were like, okay, well, we'll keep going. And I think we were hearing goats by this stage, maybe.
Yeah, we were.
And then we came across
that lone white one.
Yeah.
Yep.
It almost saw us and came to us, I think. Like, we were standing on the side of the ridge just talking about stuff, I don't know what, trying to explain winds or something like that. The wind was howling a fair bit the first day.
Actually, that's something I was going to take up with Jordan, and just talking about animal behaviour. And just because he'd seen those previous goats, he saw them grazing, he saw them alert, not alarmed, but definitely alert. And then when he saw that other goat, I was going to say, notice its posture and how it was just head on a swivel looking for its friends.
Yep.
And it was going forwards and backwards and all around the place. It looked real confused. And then you men just like tracked it all the way along that the vehicle.
Yeah, she kind of knew something was up, but the crazy thing at that point was we got up above the road. She was kind of on the road. We were just trying to come up from above her, and so we could get a shot down on it.
Yep.
But the amount of diggings that we saw on that ridge in particular, that face, I've never seen diggings as deep as what we saw there.
Yeah, and like I said, I went up. I maintained my altitude, kept skirting around on that contour, but there was same. There was old. Whether they were old vehicle tracks or logging tracks, I'm not sure. But they were ripped up, and there was like a full seep, and there was like sow beds where they chewed up grass, and like there was old pig shit. But then I found one fresh one, and yeah, it's a bit of a I was hoping something would bust out of the grass there, but it never happened.
Yeah, so we ended up finding this white goat for probably 600 metres across, and then jumped in. We just had to jump the fence onto where she was. This next paddock, and so we were in this paddock, and we just had goats all suddenly everywhere, like all around us, right? Particularly, we had some in front of us, but then we had some climbing up the hill over the top of us, and this is kind of when you got your next stalk. Jordy, do you want to take us through that?
Yeah. So it was a similar type situation. Like, obviously, adrenaline's pumping. Had you in my ear, which was really, really good. I remember you saying one thing back at camp, and you said, like, the biggest mistake early first-time bow hunters make is they rush everything.
Yeah.
And I took that as a concept of, like, rushing, putting your arrow on, rushing, like, setting up your shot, rushing, taking a shot. But in reality, it really comes down to the full stalk itself. So I think we followed them, or I walked with you or stalked with you for a little while, and then there was this massive log that we had to jump over to try and get behind a bush from there, and you were kind of like, okay, well, you go try jump that log and get across behind it.
Yeah, I think I said if you get to this point, you're going to have a shot at 16 meters or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so that was the concept, to get you to that point so you could take that shot.
Yeah, and so I left you at that point, which was good, and like I'm really glad that I got to do it on my own. But I definitely feel like I was way too rushed. And it's funny, at the end of this trip, you were saying like how different you are when you're chasing something or stalking something. You just feel like you're falling over stuff, you're disorientated. And I definitely felt like that. Like I wanted to really pace myself and be slow, but then I was like stepping on sticks, and then that would break, and then tripping over a rock and something like that. So
Everything sounds super noisy, eh?
yeah, so I just felt like my stalk was really unco, and also I did rush it. Like I felt like I walked too fast. I think Adam was telling me at one point, like, all you really want to do is take a step every sort of 20 seconds, nice and slow, keep the pace going, put your left foot forward every time you finish, which was really good information. But yeah, for that second attempt, I think I got across the log, and then I got slowly behind the tree, but I think at some point they noticed or heard me.
They were definitely aware something was up, and they kept moving. But what they do a lot, and this is just animal behaviour in general, is they'll try to catch you out. If they think they're getting stalked, they'll do something like, we're going to pretend to eat, although we won't actually be eating. We'll just put our head down, but we'll kind of keep our ears adjusted towards you.
Yeah.
And so at one point, I think I was like, Jordy, just stop. And you're like, yep. And then you just kept moving. You're like, it's going to take this one more step, and we're good. I'm like, stop. And it was so windy and stuff, you probably couldn't hear half of what I was saying. But yeah, because they try to trick you out, like obviously it's fighting for their lives. They kind of they'll do whatever they can to survive. But yeah, in this circumstance, all you had to do was probably just wait for an extra minute. Like if you just let them calm back down, you would have definitely got a shot. But because they knew something was up, they started moving on that little bit quicker, and they were just trying to stay that bit ahead. And then they would look behind and be like, oh, there's still something up, and then they'd kind of keep walking off. And so there was a mob of 4, and 2 of them had no idea, but 2 of them were enough aware that they were going to keep pushing you until they could confirm or deny what it was.
Yeah, I definitely felt like that, and it's one of those things, because I ended up taking a shot on that one, didn't I?
You did. You hit the log.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I think it was the black one on the left hand side, and I aimed. I was nervous, and I didn't have a rangefinder, so I didn't know how far away it was, but I thought it was something,
No, that was when you were with me. So I told you the distance,
right.
and you were top. I was like, top pin, just shoot. You've got that.
Yeah,
view on that one.
that's right. Yeah,
And that was actually, I think the first time when you knocked your arrow, you actually weren't very shaky. Like when we were very first on the billies, but then when we got round to this side, the nerves kicked in the second time round. It's like the first time it hadn't kind of all sunk in as to what was happening, I think.
Yeah.
But this time it did. You're like, oh god, like it's all happening here. Like the adrenaline had proper dumped, and so that's when your arrow was pretty shaky.
Yeah.
And then that's when we hit the log instead.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It's like, hey, it's all part of it, and I prefer that you hit the log than hit your go, right? Like that's a way better outcome.
Yeah, 100%. And it also taught me that, like, because I think it took a long time for us to get onto another set of goats after that, and that's what really taught me, like, instead of trying to rush everything and do it within a minute or two, like, it's okay just to sit for 3 or 4 minutes and just let them calm down again, let them get used to everything, and then reset up rather than trying to rush everything.
Definitely. And so at this point, Adam was above us, and once these goats are kind of, I think they end up winding us or something. I can't remember what happened, but they ran down to the gully, and there's literally just goats everywhere. Like we could have crossed over the valley and had goats on the opposing face. But you were up the hill, we were down the hill, and then there were still goats between, like kind of at a triangle point from where we were. And so I'm looking up at you, and you're trying to tell me there's pigs on the opposite face, and I'm looking at you trying to tell you that there's goats, like right there. So you're trying to say, go over there. I'm like, yeah, I got it, but you have to go over there. And you're like, fine, I'll come down. So you start storming down the hill. I'm like, stop! Trying to tell you, oh, there's goats there. They don't know you're there. They think, like, they know we're here. But you can probably get onto them. And eventually, we caught on, and you had a little crack. What happened there?
Yeah, so I finally got eyes on them, and then I just moved around, and there was, I believe, 3 or 4, and yeah, it was 4, and then I just they were just grazing, but it was quite a lot of that blady grass and lamandra stuff up on the hill there, and not a lot of cover. So I was sort of just following around, waiting for them to go into a fold in the land, because there's lots of that, just so I could get up on them. And then I got to a point where up above me, when I got almost to the lip of the hill, and then up above me was another probably 15 goats on the fence line, skyline on the fence line. I'm like, well, I just don't need them going off. So I was at a bit of a stalemate, and then they made the decision for me, the original 4, because they marched right off into that other tree line way up the end. And then I had goats below me, and I'm like, well, that's a no-brainer. I'll just go down here because the wind was coming up anyway. So that's when I headed down there, and that's when I was side hilling to get in on them. And there was some of them, there was a big mix of colours on the goats this weekend, and some of them had this like grey, like a grey coat.
It literally looks like a gum tree.
Yeah, and the shaggy is all get out. Yeah. Like really, really long haired, like Angora sort of breed thing. Anyway, I'm coming around the hill, and everything's up and grazing, so I'm sort of thinking I'm going to see, with the exception of maybe a pig, I'd see whatever goats are around. But yeah, those 2 of those grey buggers were bedded down behind a bush, and I literally got 6 metres from them, and they jumped up. I was like, ah. So it was a bit of a stalemate, and that that shrub, that boxthorny shrub with the thorns on it, that's quite woody. Yeah. And I'm like, you can't thread an arrow through that crap. It'll just ping your arrow clean off. So I sort of just had to watch them, and of course they just moved up, and then the last thing you can see is just their head. They didn't want to take their eyes off me, and I'm like, who cares? I'm going down on the other ones that I discovered below me, which had like a brownie one in it, like a fawny brown. So I moved down to them, and I got real close, and they were just inside of it, just this side of a fence. And I had a shot, and I shot low, and me arrow hit the fence and went flying off, like, and that wasn't the only time that weekend, but yeah. So I was like, crap, and then that sort of shoot. It was starting to get a bit gusty because we're nearing. Actually, that was around the time that you had to RV with Josh, right?
So yeah, pretty much the same time that all this is happening, we found another little mob of goats. So we went onto the other side to try and find the pigs, and then we went up the hill, and I think we jumped over the pigs because they were kind of around the corner a bit more, and we found another little mob of goats, and we had another chance at them, or another shot at them, and we had to climb over this little ridge and then come down on top of them. We had one tussock of grass between us and them, and it was enough kind of to block us, but not really. So we're just trying to slow stalk down on top of it, and we got to where we need to be, and I ranged them, and they were 40 metres, and I thought we were going to be much closer. I didn't really look at the whole situation before we did it. So we got to 40 metres, I'm like, well, it's too far for you to shoot, Jordy. And so he was like, well, you don't want to have a shot? I'm like, okay. And by this stage, they just up and left.
They definitely smelt us or spotted us or something, because they were lying down, they were pretty relaxed.
Yeah, the wind was howling out. One was facing up the hill, so she would have definitely just seen us as we were walking, not walking, as we were crawling down to the bush. She would have just seen one of us over the top of the grass, and would have just been enough for her to be like, what's going on?
Despite all the fractured mobs across both hillsides of that gully, and when I say gully, it's more of a valley, really. Yeah, it was. They were collectively all starting to move up at that point in time.
That wasn't because of us, because we walked onto the other side, and just to give you a bit of a concept as to how windy it was, we got to the same face that all the goats were on, and goats were probably 600 metres down the valley from where we were, and they started taking off because of the wind.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was what was happening. They were all moving off because of our wind, but we were like, okay, well, we can at least get onto these goats and try to find these pigs. And then it didn't bother you what you were doing up on that.
No.
But as we stuffed that stalk up, Josh came in, he was driving it, so we walked over to the fence line and jumped in and said, hey, and he took us for a drive around the block, and he's like, we told him about you, and you called and he said, I'm just on a quick pig stalk. We're like, cool. And we're like, okay, we'll go for a drive, we'll come back.
Well, hang on, just right before that, my intent was to make my way back to you because the goats had all pushed off, and I was just boogieing down the hill, and same thing, there's a couple of goats behind a bush, there's a straggler mob, and I had them at about 10 metres, but again, that boxthorn thing right in front of me, and I'm like, crap. And I'm like, it was a stalemate. She's looking at me. I'm making goat noises. So they didn't bust out, and they certainly didn't have my wind, which was handy. And I'm like, well, I got to get moving. So I just sort of moved around and sort of edged around to see if I could open it up, and they busted off, understandably. And then, yeah, it's right around, as soon as I'd walked around where they were, you rang me, and it was the first reception we got all day, which was handy, because we're so high. And I'm talking to you, and he's like, yep, yeah, well, we're just going to go for a thing. And I was like, all right, got to go pigs. And that's when I seen the sow and the piglets.
So we're like, okay, we'll go for a drive and we'll come back and get you. We're on one side of the gorge, so we have to drive to the other side of the gorge to get back to the hut first, and then go for a drive around that side. And then I think we were going to come back, and he was going to drop us back with Adam, essentially. So we went and we got to the other side. Oh, no, you tell us the pig story. What happened with the pig?
Oh, yeah. So the sow, she made her way down right into the bottom of that drainage line, which has got quite a bit of water and sort of mushy, swampy stuff in it. And so they got down in there, and I've tracked her. There was a lot of, it's sort of been semi-recently cleared, a lot of pushed up with the dozer, all like deadfall and timber and that. So she went in behind there, and she had a lot of piglets with her. And yeah, I just got in on top of them, sort of stealthed around, and yeah, it was all about sort of 10 metre to 15 metre sort of range. She just didn't give me a shot. She was in the thick stuff, and every time I drew, she wouldn't stop, and then she'd turn back on to me, and then the wind started getting squirrely, and I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'll shoot one of these piglets. So I nailed one of the piglets before they busted out.
It's a harder target, really.
Yeah.
Especially with the curve.
Yeah.
But also, the wind was crazy. Like, it was strong, really strong. Like, what would you call it? How many knots do you reckon?
Oh, okay. Up the tops, yeah. But where I was, right down in the bottom, not so much. Probably, yeah. But I see your point. Yeah, it was whipping across the hillside.
Yeah, it was. It was going a bit crazy by this stage. But not consistent enough that it would make your stalking better. Like what a regular strong breeze would be.
Yeah, it's gusty.
It's awesome because you're like, okay, well, I can just walk against it whenever it blows. But in this situation, it was not that case.
Yeah.
And so from there, yeah, Josh took us to the hut and showed us the other side of the mountain. And he goes, oh, I'll just take you guys up the top. He's like, it's actually really good up there, and I saw some good billies up there. So he's like, I'll drop you up the top. And so he drove us up the top and just left us there instead of going back to get you.
Yeah.
And I think by this stage, you had pretty much shot your piglet and started walking back to the hut. I think by the time we actually got to the top of the hill, because big, like, I don't know how tall it would be, but big depth to it.
Oh, it's got some elevation.
Yeah, and so we got to the top, and we started our stalk up on top, and sure enough, we saw some goats within 10 minutes of being up there. But as we were moving to get to the goats that we wanted to get to, there was a whole mob that was all bedded. We just didn't see it all. We didn't do any glassing essentially at the top one because we were just going straight for these goats. And this whole mob just bust up and they were gone. Everything just ran. And we're like, God damn it. I definitely had tunnel vision. I wasn't looking around for too much else. It's like, goats, let's go, Jordy. And so we sat at the top of the hill and had a coffee, and then did a little fox whistle and had no luck. So we started walking our way down. And we didn't get back to the hut till 2:30 or 3 or something.
Yeah, it was around 2.
Yeah, I had a big lesson at that moment too. So, you know, being a city boy, not knowing experience too much or terrain too much, I kind of had a business call I had to make while we still had reception up the top here. And so I just said to Matty, I'm going to make 2 or 3 calls. You go on ahead and I'll meet you back. And
Mate, you know where you're going, right?
yeah, like that this way. I'm like, yeah, I'll be fine. You know, being distracted, checking my emails. Biggest lesson is just to leave your phone off as you go through the gates, because I was still so distracted at this point in time. Anyway, I make my few phone calls. You know, everything's urgent at every point in time when it's really not, and you should really enjoy the moment. And then after I finished my calls, I started walking down the mountain and took a wrong turn somewhere. And, you know, I think it was like 45 minutes later, ended up finding myself back to camp, and they're like, oh yeah, we were just a little bit worried about you. And there was at one point I was just like, I was so disgruntled. I was like, I have no idea where I am. I don't have any reception. I don't know. I was like, just someone come and save me. But lucky Matty had some breakfast ready for me when I got back to camp, so I felt better about that.
Yeah.
Breakfast at 2 p.m.
I did say to Matty, I'm like, he watched which direction you walked off, didn't he? And you're like, yeah, I think so.
Oh, he definitely was. He was on the phone looking at me as I walked away. So.
Yeah.
No, I also said, okay, so this is because essentially we were at the bottom of this ridge where the tree line was off. I'm like, if you go to keep aiming for that, that's where the hut is.
But you just dropped to the water, didn't you, George?
Yeah.
I was going that way rather than
went
that
to-
way.
Yeah, Roger.
Essentially, he went hard right rather than just like north east.
Yeah. So lesson there is just leave your phone off. If you're going away hunting for a weekend and you're going to enjoy it, just nothing's that urgent that you're going to get lost or feel like you need someone to come save you.
Yeah, it is definitely. I mean, that's what I think a lot of us love about it is when you get to a rural part of the country and you can't have reception, like you just don't have reception, you're just forced to stop. Versus sometimes when you're stuck in, especially like when you run your own business, you have to have your comms on all the time. And then when you get to the situation when you don't have the choice but to put the phone down, that's when it's great because you're like, well, I'm forced to stop, so therefore you stop. Versus where we had reception sometimes, it was like, oh, I'll just quickly check in and make sure there's no fires to put out.
Yeah.
But then you end up having to put out fires. You're like, oh, I should have just not dealt with it.
Yeah, exactly. And everything can wait till Monday. Like, there's
Yeah.
no point. You know what I mean? Like, you may as well enjoy the weekend. You've spent the time and money and took the time off to go away. Like, put your autoresponder on and check out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and so we essentially didn't have any. Oh, yeah, the one successful stalk, which is your pickle. On that hunt.
Yeah. So we had, I took it back to camp to show the boys, despite the fact I had to carry the bloody thing all that way. But then we had a mean feed and a brew and that, and then I before yous came back, I went back up to get reception as best I could, and that's when I saw that you'd said, oh, we're chasing goats, we'll meet you back at the hut, but I'd already sent a meet you back at the hut, but it didn't send. But then when I went up the hill, I saw goats. And I'm like, all right, there's goats just up above camp. That's sweet. And then I came back, but I didn't take my bow, of course. And then so I came back down. Because my intent when after shooting that pig was just to run into yous on the track, and I actually boogied through that gorge country because I'm like, he can't turn around here. So if he's going to come up on me in the car, I need to get punched through this.
Yeah.
And then before I knew it, I was back to the hut. But yeah, and then we set off in the Arvo. You want to go from there?
You were walking back up the hill as I walked down the hill, and so I yelled out to him like, Adam. And so we caught up. And you're like, look, there's goats just there. Like,
Yeah.
Great. I'm like, well, why don't you go cracking them? I'll go start cooking breakfast by the time you're back.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
To camp. We'll have food, and you'll have a goat. It'll be great. And so you went up at night. I went and cooked breakfast, and I think pretty much the wind was just swirling crazily. Like, I'd just leave it so we get a proper shot later.
Yeah, I was underneath him. I wasn't on top of him. The wind was squirrely, and I was like, yeah, we'll just leave him as a bit of a play,
Yeah. So
which was a wise move.
we kind of roughly knew where they were if they'd stayed on the tops. And so we're like, well, we'll drive up, and if they're not there, we'll go through to the other side where all the goats were earlier that morning. Because the wind had started to die down a little bit by this stage. Not heaps, but it was...
And it settled in too.
Yeah, it was more consistent. And so we drove up the hill, and sure enough, the goats were just a little bit further on than what we thought. And as we drove past, it didn't really bother them. So we went up and opened the... Did we open the gate, or we just did a turnaround? I can't remember. We turned around and ended up coming all the way back.
We
down
went up
past
we went up to the yards,
Yeah.
and then we came
That's
back
right,
down.
because I had to get my wind checker. I'd left it in Josh's car. And so, yeah, got my wind checker, came back. The goats were curious as to what we were doing, but didn't run off. And so we drove back down the ridge and pulled up, and we're like, okay, well, this is a good chance for us to have a dig at them. So we started going up, and this is where I was like, I'm pretty sure we can get Jordy's first goat. Like, surely we can get this happening. And
Yeah,
so
which is the focus of the weekend.
it really was just like, hey, how can we get Jordy as fast into bow hunting as possible and make him addicted so he spends all of his savings and comes out
Supporting the
hunting.
community.
Yeah, exactly. And so talk us through this one.
Yeah, this was a good one because obviously didn't have eyes on the goat. Like we knew where they were, but we didn't have eyes on them, and so we went back to park the car. We kind of walked up the side of the mountain, and I definitely feel because I'd already had 2 encounters, I was a lot more calmer around the whole thing. Like I knew they were there, and I knew the reason that we were going, but the stalk I felt was a lot more calmer for me. Like my adrenaline wasn't as going as crazy.
Yeah.
But same thing. I was essentially tailing you up the side of the mountain, and then you slowed as you were sort of seeing them, and then same thing. You were kind of guiding me in terms of where we needed to go, where I needed to place myself, and everything else like that. And then, yeah, there was a white one and how many were there?
There was a big mob, but we could only see 3 of them. You had proper view of 2, but one was much closer, which was like the ashy white type one. So yeah, to get up the hill, essentially we had a consistent wind. I was like, okay, well just follow me, and then when we get close, I'll put you in front of me, so you can have a shot. So we put you in front of me, and I think you drew back, and it walked away.
That's right.
And so we're like, no, let down. And then we trekked further forward, probably another 10 meters or so we could get you up to the tree. And then I knew it was going to be, it was at 20 meters at that point. I'm like, okay, we've been practicing this is a good shot. Like, go for it when you get a good chance to have your shot, essentially.
Yeah. So then I remember put all the wheels in motion, all the things I had been learning, and I had it lined up. It was at the 20, and I think as I took the shot, and this is one thing that I think, Matty, you noticed over the weekend, I was kind of dropping my left arm as I was, or dropping my arm
Your
as I
bow
was
arm, yeah.
taking the shot.
The bow arm.
Yeah. So it hit, but it didn't hit in the location that I wanted it to hit.
It hit a bit far back. It was a dead goat eventually. It just wouldn't have been straight away.
Yeah.
It wasn't straight away.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that was my first go, which felt great.
Yeah, so essentially what happened is he shot that one, it went up and bedded up in amongst the other goats. So to even get to it, I stepped out and there was goats still there. So I quickly took a shot on a goat and it was quartering away. And so I shot her through, it essentially went through the guts, straight out through the middle of the chest. She went, what was it, 15 meters maybe?
Yeah.
Piled up.
Yeah.
And so as we were walking around, the goats were all still there. They just weren't really, they move on a little bit, but not really. And it was like the 2 that were closest to the ones that we would shoot would move on.
Yeah.
And the others would just stay up high, or stay somewhat put. And so we walked around we were kind of going around to where my shot was, and then that's when we found your Billy again, and he hopped up, and you got to have a second shot, but it was a miss. What happened there?
Yeah, so I saw you had your bow up and were ready to go, and then I felt like I was kind of in 20-meter range again. It kind of like stood up on a rock, but there was some bush in front of it. So I felt like I had a clean shot, and I did. I had it on target and drew and fired, but I just think there was too much bush in the way, and that really impacted the arrow, of course. And so that I think it just dinged off to the left or something like that. Didn't even hit the goat. So it was a great shot. I had it on target and on point, but obviously if there's anything in front, it's not worth taking a shot.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, well, Jordy's shot, and I think we were getting low on your arrows by this stage. Look at that creek.
Yeah, that was my last one, I think.
How good's that?
Wow, that's awesome.
But yeah, so I was like, okay, cool. Get another shot on this goat. So it was, given that it was injured,
Look at all the fucking fire.
the fires all over the hill, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, given that it was injured, it wasn't going to come up the hill very fast, so I knew I just needed to get on top of it, and I could have a shot on it. So I did that, and as I was going up, all the goats just stopped and were just straight looking at me. I'm like, should I shoot another? I'm like, no, just make sure you get this one done properly. So I just put myself in a position as it walked out, and I took the shot and just pinned him right there and then. And so dragged it down to you.
I saw that shot because I was just underneath you in the rocky bit.
Yeah.
I tell you what, it's great seeing you in action because you're so onto, you're laser focused on what you need to do and what needs to happen. Your stalks are great, but you're not like you stalk at the right pace. It's still slow, but you're still action man, like ready to go. It was really good to see it.
Yeah, thanks, bro. No, so it's cool because I bring your goat down. I'm like, okay, it's Jordy's first kill. I'm like, I'll count that as your first kill.
Thanks, mate.
No, so I'm like, your goat's here. Come up. And so you got your goat, and Adam came and found me by that stage. So I was like, go have a crack, bro, see if they're still about. So I kind of told you which way they went. And we had to go down and get the car so we could start our butchering process. And
Yep. Yeah. So all I did was go over the backside of that ridge, rocky ridge. We're at basically the eastern end of it, and so I just dropped down over that edge there, and then I just sidled around. It's pretty open country, so you can see all the way down to the open flats, like the grazing flats and that. And I'm talking 200 meters. So I'm about 50 to 80 from the crest of that ridge. So I just picked a game trail and just went super stealth around there, and just hoping I'd run into the goats again because we didn't know where they went. And I'm just sidling around, looking up, looking down, looking up, looking down, and I nearly got to the end of it. So I was probably 100, 200 meters from the end of it, and I just came out of this sort of little, I had to duck under this bushy section and go past this big tree, and I just look right, and there's two 30-odd kilo pigs just bedded, nestled up against another big tree, and I'm just going, crap, they're like 6 meters away, and one of them's looking right at me. I didn't even have an arrow on the string because I'm ducking and weaving under crap, and they looked at me for probably about a minute, and then one of them got up, and they both got up, and then they just boogied out of there, and I was like, oh well, that's a bust. So by the time I got back to you men, yous were done dressing out those goats.
Yeah, so given that mine went through the gut and into the chest, and given that Jordy's first shot was a little far back and punched in the diaphragm, I think you got liver the first shot, liver and a little bit of gut. Yeah. So it was there was a lot of guts on the internal. So I'm like, we're going to do essentially like the gutless method, just take the shoulders, sorry, the front legs, back legs, and back straps.
Yep.
And so that was kind of your first time doing any form of quartering or field dressing at all, right?
Yeah, 100%. Never done anything like that before.
How did you think you were going to deal with it?
Yeah, it's funny. It's I don't know. That was kind of my biggest worry of this weekend. Is like I didn't know how I was going to feel about shooting an animal or killing an animal and skinning it and everything else like that, or taking any of the legs off or anything like that. But I just felt quite natural, really. Like I was lucky to get to see you how to do it. You kind of showed me how to do it on your one and what you did, and then it just felt natural. It just felt like I was just a hunter-gatherer, cutting up my meat and getting ready for the meal for the day.
You weren't skirmish at all. It was really good. Like you grabbed the knife and just got straight into it. I was like, cut here. You're like, boom, straight in. I'm like, okay, we're on.
It worries me how naturally I felt about it. So.
No, I think because it is innate, right? It is something that is inbuilt in us and has been for evolutions. It's just, yeah.
That's the old Celtic teaching method. See one, do one, teach one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you saw it, you did it, and now after what transpired over the weekend, you can definitely go and show someone what you learned.
What else was really good at Matty is like, all right, now thank the animal before we do anything, and I think that makes you just feel a whole lot better around. The whole thing is you respect them, you thank them, and then you're not just killing them for no reason. The reason is we're cutting them up and we're taking the meat and we're going to eat the meat. So why not? You should feel good about that rather than just living in there, having a dead animal there.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think anyone takes killing with a light heart. Essentially, it's not like the taking of a life is not a nice thing to do, and I think maybe not every hunter, but a lot of people definitely have that second thought about it before they go and do it every single time. And yes, we still want to go hunting. Yes, we see that side of it, but there's also the art. I mean, a lot of what I do is purely for the meat hunting. Yes, I like shooting big deer, and I like big antlers just because I think they're incredible as a creature. But at the same time, always chasing meat for the freezer, and so that's a big part of it for me. It's like, how can we give back and actually take a second to realize what we've just gone through as a process as well. And it kind of gives you a chance to, I think, de-stress some of the emotions you've just gone through, the physical adaptation that you have to go through to shoot, the emotions that build up, the adrenaline, the dumps, everything that happens in that moment. It's kind of a nice way to seal it off, I think.
Yeah, thank it, give it back, and just look after it respectfully. Don't just kill it and leave it and go on to the next one.
Yeah. So we butchered up. I can't really remember what happened from there. We went down to the shack and tied them up. Is that right?
Yeah, put them in the bag. We drove the car back up around. Put the meat in the bag, which was a cool process. The meat bags.
I think it was pretty much night. Oh no, we went for a walk back down that.
Yeah, I thought we went down that.
We went down that where we started the day, essentially.
That's right. We wrapped back around and went for a cruise down there.
We just ran out of sunlight.
That's right.
Yeah, we ran out of time, ran out of sunlight, and we're like, well, let's get back to the cabin, and we'll see if we can go for a quick drive and get a deer down with the rifle.
Yep.
Josh sent me a message the other day and said, if you're wanting to fill the freezer, bring a rifle. And so yeah, we did that. We just quickly went for a drive around and spotlighted one on the other side, and
Spotlight more than one.
yeah, we spotlighted multiples, and yeah,
Like just in the one location, but yeah.
just on top of the hill, shot one and took it back to camp, and then hung it up. You gutted it while I cooked dinner, and then we hung it up and just let it sit overnight. Day two was just an absolute cracker. Like, in all honesty, probably one of my top 2, maybe top 3 hunting days of my life. Like, I don't know, it was one that's just going to stay in the memory bank for a long time. We woke up, we were just getting ready, having a coffee, getting our stuff together, and as we're there, this fox walks straight over and it's going straight to the gut pile. I'm like, get stuff, like literally it walks across camp pretty much.
Yep.
So I run in and grab my bow and run out.
In thongs.
Got my bow. I didn't have my equalizer on, so I just took one arrow, ran down and saw where it was, and I thought it was going to stay in the creek the way that he kind of ducked down, because he looked over at us and he ducked down to the creek, and I'm like, for sure he's going to stay in that creek and move along. So I'm like, I've got a quick second to get across and get on top of him so I can take a shot back at him before he gets my wind. And so I start moving along the flat, and sure enough, he pops up out of the creek. And I'm like, shit. And so he's just looking at me. I'm stuck in the middle of nowhere. I don't have a clear shot on him. I'm like, what I'll do is I'll just keep walking to this tree then, and I'll be able to take a shot from this tree. Like, once I step behind the tree, I'll draw and take my shot. Essentially, I step out and shoot him. And I'm walking, and I'm like, he's right there. He's right there. I know.
Because he's looking at you, you're walking, I'm like, hang on a minute.
Yeah. And so I get to this tree, and he runs up and runs over the other side. I draw back and I take my shot, and then I smack him. I'm like, yes. And then he just runs, and he keeps running into the blackberry bush. And I'm like, oh. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go follow him up and see if I can find him. So I went straight down, went into the blackberry bushes, couldn't see him anywhere, and they're so freaking thick. There's no way you get anything out of it. I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's dead, but I'm like, I can't claim that fox. Like, he's just, until I have it in my hands, I didn't feel like I could claim it as my fox. So we went back, I got back to camp, we finished having our coffees, and we went out for the morning. And we decided we were going to go chase deer with the bow firstly down kind of the river flats or the creek flats. And we started...
why not go to the bottom of the largest hill and then walk up it?
Yeah, essentially. What else could you do with your time, right? We figured if we actually spent some time with the deer at the bottom, by the time we finish that, there's going to be goats at the top, and it'll be sweet to go. So we did that, and we actually came across this mob, and I put on a pretty good...
That's steady. You stalked the deer.
What was that? Yeah, that's what I was saying.
The mob. Yeah, Roger. Yep.
And at first they were onto us, and then we just let them come down. They were just doing their thing, and they came down maybe only 150 meters from where we were. And so I was like, look, they've come down here, we can just stalk up to them. Like, we'll go real slow and see what we can do, and maybe try and make a play. And so we got up there, and sure enough, I thought they'd gone further down to the gully, but they'd stayed at the top of the gully, and they were just sitting there waiting for something to happen, really. It seemed like it.
Yeah, I think they're probably just chewing their cud a bit, and just it's that sort of...
one got onto us as soon as we came over, I just saw, like, the ears and the head, just the very top of the head, just like that triangle you see when you see a doe. And so I saw her, and she saw me just as like the outline of my head, maybe. And so I just told the boys to sit down, we'll just wait for a bit. And my range where she was just 67 meters at that point. And so I said to Adam, like, I actually told you to go make a play. I'm like, if you go down and around, you'll probably get a shot on them. And you're like, no, it's going to be too far for me, bro. You have a go.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, if I come back actually to where you were and go up the hill instead, because I know that she was there, I didn't know where the rest of them were. I'm like, if I get to that point, I can have a clear shot. So I did that, and I had like a little bit of deadfall between me and them. I got to them, and I had this guy out the middle of the creek. There's actually this drive track to it, but yeah, it looked like in the middle of the creek.
Be caught in there.
But yeah, I had this like really clear shot, but it was a like really small yearling, 30 meters. I'm like looking at the size of the mother doe compared to looking at this yearling. I'm like, nah, I'm not going to take that. And so, yeah, mate.
Walking my dog.
On the main highway. And so I'm like, okay, I'll wait for a better shot. And essentially they all hopped up and started walking off. So I got a walk up to the I stalked up to this tree. I had a clear shot. It was at 50 meters. I'm like, you know what? I've actually been practicing 50 a lot recently. I'm very comfortable with the shot. I'm going to take it. I took it, but as just before I took it, all the cows start walking up the hill. So all the deer start looking. I'm like, oh, I'm like, no, I've got this. So I took my shot. And at some point between taking the shot at the fox and at this point, my sight had moved dramatically, and I shot.
Unbeknownst to you.
Yeah, unbeknownst to me, obviously. I was aiming for her heart, and I went half a deer distance behind her bum. And I was like, that shot felt perfect. I don't know what's going on. So I don't know why I didn't think to check my sight at that point in time. Instead, I go, I'll just put that arrow to the middle of my quiver. I'll use the others instead. So we walked to the top, still on operation, get Jordy first, like very clean, proper kill. And we get to the top knowing there's probably going to be goats up there. And we get up there, and sure enough, there's the bleating going on. It was a trek and a half to get up there. We were huffing and puffing.
Yeah, it was a mission.
Yeah, and so we get to the top. And I'm like, all right, Jordy, let's go. I don't think you caught your breath at all.
Yeah, I was like, Jordy, put an arrow. I was like, oh,
Tell us about this one.
yeah. So this is a very special moment for me. So essentially, all three of us get to the top. I'm getting to the point where, like, obviously the first goat wasn't like a real clean kill, which I was a bit disappointed in. But you know, everyone's got to learn somewhere. And then, you know, the boys have been really great all weekend, you know, helping team me up, getting me ready so I can get my first kill. And I was like, oh, well, does Adam want to have a go? Or Matty, you want to have a go? But sure enough, it was still my turn. So this time, I'm right up behind Matty, and we're kind of stalking really close into these goats. And we spot, I think it was maybe a 3 or 4 that we spotted initially. We didn't.
Yeah, well, there's a fair few on the other side, and there was kind of some in front of us that we were going to go for.
Yeah, so
we've got the options to go either way if we want to.
And we were trying to get close up into this brush, but we kind of got maybe 3/4 of the way, and then you just said stop. And I think there was 2 goats that
There was a big billy over there, and he was just kind of perched up on a rock, just looking around. It was like he was keeping watch.
Yeah, there's a sentry. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was just like, well, we'll just wait here and see what he does. And as we were waiting, just 2 of them kept feeding around. Actually, 3 of them ended up feeding around.
Is that when I told you to just stealth towards it and keep that bush between you and him?
No, that was me.
That was later.
That was later.
Yeah.
That's when me and Jordy were up.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
and then they started to come much closer to us. And so at that point, you said to me, all right, you wrap around me, just sit in front of me. And so I come in just sitting in front of you. You're like, get an arrow on. I think I had an arrow on at this
He
point.
was super hunched.
Yeah. So I did all the things. I was like trying to stalk and crouch and everything else like that. Matty's like standing there like the big tree that lumberjack that he is. He's like, bro, stand up. So I end up
so uncomfortable.
standing up. And then I think so there was 2, right? So one of them was a white one, and it came up on the right-hand side of this kind of tree.
There's a fallen, the fallen log was where they were going to.
And then we kind of saw the left one as well. And so Matty was like, okay, well, my bow was pointed down at this point in time. So Matty was like, lift up your bow very slowly, get it to a point where you're kind of comfortable. And then...
So it's in front of your face so you can draw if you need to at any point.
Yeah, and then I think at that point you're like, okay, draw. And the white one just stepped up onto where I had a really clean shot. I think you were saying, like, you were guiding me through. I think you're like, okay, it's about 20 meters.
We were a lot less at that point. I think it was 16 or something.
Was it?
12.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we were much closer. But she came up and she just didn't give you a shot. She wouldn't give you a broadside shot at all.
Yeah, that's right.
She was up on top, and then I was like let down. And then they actually started feeding kind of back towards us in the same location, but started feeding back at us. And they looked at us for a bit, and I was like, just stay still. We're all good. They don't even know we're here. We're just going to be a treat to them. And sure enough, they just went back to eating.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, essentially when you drew back, I think what happened was she stood down on the log, and I was like, you don't have a shot. Like, do not shoot, because you've only got spine. That's all you could see. You couldn't see the bottom of her chest at all.
Yeah.
And so you let down, and then, keep going from there.
Yeah, and then she came back up, and I think she gave us a much clearer shot up on a rock. And then you're like, all right, draw back, guide me through it, slow down, top pin, like step by step, which was really good. And I got my first really clean shot on a goat, which I was super stoked with. It kind of ran off, and you could hear it. You could hear it was a clean shot, so Matty was stoked.
I watched the arrow enter. I'm like, you've just pinned that, dude. That's sick. But at the same time, this other goat just turned to look at it, what the other goat was doing, rather than thinking there was something up.
Yeah, it's crazy how naturally they just don't, like, you'd expect them to all run off at that point in time. But it just kind of had a look around and was like, oh yeah, nothing's going on. And gave us a second clean shot. So Matty was like, get another arrow on, get another arrow on. Get another arrow on.
I was trying to be like calm, but I'm like, you get two, yeah, let's go.
Draw again, similar, well, exact same distance essentially. And fired off arrow number 2 and got another really
pinned it as well.
Clean shot. So
I was just so pumped at this point, and there's a cool video of us. I give Jordy knuckles, and I just punch him. I'm like, fuck yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I didn't have the animals in it. I just had yous in it.
Yeah, that's a good. Still captures the moment.
But 2 for 2, and it was such a good feeling because I felt like I had a redemption on the one from the day before.
Definitely. That was the part that I really wanted to have happen. It was clean kills where you could see the whole start to finish process and see how efficient and effective it could be. And literally, they were 10 meters from where you shot them, 15 meters, maybe 20 max, right? They were piled up, so that was cool. But you were like, all right, should we go get them? I'm like, no, stop. This is now Adam's turn because we're on top of the hill.
Yeah, I saw one probably like 30 or 40 range. I was like, hey, you finally reckon that one is? Because I reckon I can get a third. Like, I was just so excited.
And so I turn around, I'm like, Adam, you're up. And so you then start having a stalk, take over.
Yeah, so it's, I guess, to paint a picture, it's quite a plateau, so it's fairly flat, tabletop. But there's a jumble of logs and just some little shrubs, but not a lot because it gets belted by the weather up there. But lots of lamandra and like low ground cover stuff and a lot of bladey grass. So I basically had to crouch over and I snuck in and they're just feeding through and moving back and forth as they do. And I drew and let down a couple of times and just the shot wasn't right. And then I've had to wait for her to come out from behind a tree, and she finally stepped out and then she gave me the shot. But she was behind a log, and the log was only probably big ass log, probably like 2 foot wide, and it's perfectly flat along the ground, but she's behind it and it probably comes about a third up her, and I'm like, all right, my arrow should arc over that. So because she was only probably 5 yards behind it, and I shot and my arrow hit the log, but it didn't. It was traveling pretty good, and I think I would have been good, but yeah, it just because the broadhead didn't hit the log, the arrow hit the log, and it just went twing up in the air, and I was like, crap, I hope I can find that. And then they didn't really buzz out of there. They sort of turned around and only went about 10 yards, and they settled down pretty quick because there was a bit of wind noise and all that kind of stuff, and sticks and twigs fall. And so then I just sort of let them settle, and within minutes I was back onto them, and I just had to wait for it to come through another window. And and then I do carry a rangefinder, but I don't often use it unless it's like super steep up or down or something. And I just waited for her and settled into the shot and got an arrow into her, and then she took off. And it's all like, it's pretty honestly a bit of melee at the moment because like Jordy shot animals and I didn't see his animals hit, you know what I mean? And we're not talking and communicating at this point. We're just sort of, all whispers and from a distance. And so I'm like, all right, now it's Matty's turn. So I'm like, all right, Matty. And then you take over from there.
They were pretty aware by this stage to some extent. So I'm taking steps and there's ghosts in a few different directions.
Little heads popping up all over.
Yeah, popping all over the place. I'm trying to dodge all these different goats, pausing for long times when I need to. And this one gives me a pretty good opportunity at 25 meters. So I draw and I shoot. And I've just I actually don't know what happened. I think at this point in time, I'm like, I've just pinned that goat. Great. And at that same time, as I hear the hit, this eruption happens and like 50 goats hop up off of this tabletop. We had no idea they were there. They're just all so well hidden. And this whole mob just like poof up and just scattered everywhere. I'm like, holy hell. And they're all looking at this other goat. So I'm like, sweet, next arrow, draw, shoot. Hit one, like definitely hit. And I'm like, okay, next arrow, draw. And I took another shot. I'm like, okay, sweet. I'm like, I'm done. I'm like, who's up? And then one of the goats that I hit all of a sudden starts running out. And I'm like, I didn't shoot that goat. That's a bit odd. And she kind of pulled out in front of me and was still carrying on. I'm like, oh, I haven't hit her properly. I'm like, that's odd. I was shooting that billy. And so I get another arrow out and line her up and shoot and completely miss to the right. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, oh. Yeah. And I was like, okay, something's going on here. I'm like, this is when I finally clicked that my sight had moved. I'm like, you idiot. So then I've realigned my sight. I'm like, okay, it's shooting far right. So I've sent my sight to the right and tried to straighten it up. And then I've shot purposely further back on the goat than I should have, thinking like, okay, well, if I'm aiming for I know it's still not going to be center. I'll aim roughly for the guts and I'll probably hit the chest here. And then I missed completely again. I'm like, holy heck, what just happened to my sight? Like, it is so far gone. And so the goats are all still just kind of mingled around. And I just said to you, like, I really want to get this goat finished. Can I go and stab it with my knife real quick? And I was trying to get you to have another shot as well, I think, at the same time. And they kind of moved far enough off that I could get over to her and quickly end her. And you, actually, at this time, you told Jordy, like, you go down here and chase these ones, and I'll go over here. And so I ended my goat, and you had another chance at yours. But yeah, so essentially what happened was I just had a big mob of goats in front of me, and because I was aiming for this billy that was actually a pretty decent little billy, but because my sight was so far off, I just ended up hitting the goat next to him instead. And it actually almost was a fatal shot. She would have died definitely. I think that was the second shot. Yeah. So it was like an accidental shot, but yeah, ended up getting her, which is good, right? And then, but what happened from there? I think we tried to get you on.
Oh, that's when we just realised that we better pause play because the goats were still there everywhere. The wind was still in our favour, so they again alert, but not so much alarmed because they would have run off. We're like, we better take stock of what's going on here and start tracking some animals and whatnot. So we started. I said, let's pause play. I'll go and get my arrow. So I went and fetched that arrow that went flying off, and then I fetched my arrow that went through my goat. So I got both my arrows back. Happy days. And then George, did you duck down to his goats then and gather them up?
So Jordy took another shot. Took another few shots.
Yeah. Well, before Adam left me and Adam reconvened while you were shooting Matty. Yeah. And then Adam was like, all right, after you had shot, he was like, all right, try and just practice your stalks and try and get as close as you can to these other goats. So I was pretty proud of this stalk. I, took my time, listened to his wisdom around making sure you always, land on your left foot, and went up there slowly.
It'd be right foot if you're a left-hander, but left foot forward essentially is what.
Yeah.
That tip is.
Your front foot forward, yeah.
There was a log which I got behind, and then there's nothing between the log and the goats apart from a tree that was probably 5 meters in front on the left-hand side. So I wrapped around the log on the left-hand side.
Oh, and I ranged for you, didn't I, before you stepped off?
Yeah,
so
yeah. And I think I was probably a little bit too loud between the log and that tree, but obviously they were very sus at that point in time as well. So I sat behind this tree for probably 3 minutes, and this goat and kid, started to get a little bit more comfortable again, and they actually wrapped around on my right-hand side, and I reckon they would have been within sort of 3 or 4 meters. We both kind of caught eye contact, and I didn't shit myself, didn't know what to do. And she just kind of looked at me, and I think she snorted or whatever, but obviously had my attention, and so I thought, well, if I just sit here for another 2 minutes or whatever and maybe let her continue on, I might have a good shot. Didn't really know if I should, have drawn quickly and took a shot there, but didn't do it. And then,
the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. And then she obviously saw me, got sus, ran back to the group, and then the group were kind of looking at me for another 2 or 3 minutes. And then, again, I rushed it. I didn't take a second and go, look, if I just hang here for 5, they might all chill. They were kind of all sitting underneath this massive tree, and they were probably 25 away. So I knew I could have got another good shot off, but I rushed it.
This is where you dropped your arm.
Yeah.
When we realised you were dropping your arm.
Yeah, that's because I took a video of you. I'm like, he's going to draw here, and you and I were back together then, Matty, and I'm like, he's going to look, George, and that's when I was like, George is drawing because you were down below us.
Yeah.
I was like, sweet, and then I took a video of you, and I saw soon as you released the shot, your bow arm came down.
Yeah.
It's like,
So
ah.
I missed that. It was probably a little bit longer distance than I'd really been practicing, and obviously I dropped my left arm. So I'm pretty sure I missed that shot on
You
the.
definitely hit rock and.
Yeah, that's right.
As much as it's painful, obviously seeing arrows fly, it's also I love that sound.
At least there's some reward at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then they all got completely spooked and.
Well, that's when I can bring it over to you. I'm like, all right, let's stop. Let's reconvene and get all of our goats and pack out and then do what we need to. So essentially, we found all of our goats. We started butchering them all up and packing them all into our bags and decided to make our long descent back down the hill.
I still got that video of all the goats, and it like when the mob, because all our disturbance sort of mobbed them up pretty hard, considering they're all like dispersed and like segregated all over that top. And then I got a video of like 35, 40 goats, and then they all moved off, and then there was another mob. So the ones Jordy was chucking into down after his last shot there, they regathered, and there was another 15 came up, and that's where the half decent handy billies were.
Yeah, okay.
Remember, we got eyes on their horns as they filtered through.
Yeah, so we get back to camp eventually after a pretty hard slog down the hill.
Well, hang on. That's where George had his first solo hit out, because we're like, you got 2 goats, bro. Do you want some help? You're like, no, I'm keen. I want to do this. It's like, all right. So Matty went to his and I went to mine, and then we
butchered it up by ourselves.
Yeah, which was great, and it was good to get them in the bags and put them in the pack, and see that whole process. It's not like you just back a car up and put them in the back of a car. You actually have to, do it properly, pack them properly, and take them with you, which was really, really cool. But another note, just make sure you always check if you haven't left anything before you leave, because we kind of got halfway down through this big, hard, long slog, and Matty goes, has everyone got everything? And I was like, mate, I don't care. I'm not walking back up there to go get it.
I mean, the next thing is also make sure that you clip up your waistband on your pack. You get to the bottom of the hill and Joy's like, fuck, my shoulders are so sore. And we look, and you had it clipped up, but it was so loose that it wouldn't have been doing anything. And we're like, oh, sorry, bro. Probably should have warned you about that.
It was a good shot of work out, it's all good.
Yeah. So we walked back into camp, and literally as we walked in, we were making breakfast, and then we saw the goats down on the creek bed.
Roger.
I think it was as we walked in.
No, I thought we'd had breakfast, didn't we?
Maybe, yeah. So anyway, we're sitting down these goats that are literally 50 metres from camp. I'm like, heck yes, I'm getting the longbow out. So I go and get the longbow, and I'm stalking along the creek, getting up to these goats.
You're in thongs again, I might add.
Thongs again, yeah. Yeah, so it was after lunch then. You're right, after brekkie. And so walking along, and I find my fox on top of the hill. I'm like, yeah, it was actually on top of the creek flat. It's just laying in between these, like, it hadn't even made the blackberry bushes where I thought it had gone into. So I think I was just so focused on
it escaping,
getting to where I thought it was, that I just completely walked past it, didn't see it at all, which is bizarre to me based on where it was. I was like, that is so in the open.
It's so in the open.
I don't know if I just went low on the creek and then came up to where I thought it was rather than going along top. Anyway, I saw my fox and I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, yes, I was so pumped by this stage.
Yeah.
And coming up on these goats, I'm like, sweet, I've got a really clear view here. I pretty much had another 15 minutes to go in on top of them, and I'd have a downward shot, which would be less than 10 meters on mother goat. And as I'm walking, I hear this, I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, damn goat somewhere. I'm looking up the hill, I could not see this goat from the better of me. You're looking for ages, you couldn't see him.
No, I had a bit of canopy in front of me.
I'm like,
but at that point, I'd slipped ass overhead in the creek and fucking ended up slammed on my back. Luckily, I didn't break any arrows, but fucking string and silence is totally saturated. I'm walking out of there feeling worse for wear. And then you got onto those ones on the lower.
Well, I was like, I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know where these goats are up the hill. They're obviously not here. They've obviously seen me, but these ones haven't run off from it. It's easy. I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah, they weren't reacting to it.
Exactly. So I just started making my walk, and as I got to the top of the place where I needed to be taking my shot from, she did it again. And I looked back, and that's when I saw her just up on the hill, like probably 60 meters up, and I was
straight above
behind trees from where I was before. But anyway, this goat's right in front of me. Like, I've got a perfect shot. Here we go.
Right on the edge of that
edge of the
blackberries.
So I was covered by the blackberry shooting down on her. I drew back and shot, and it was perfect alignment. It just went straight over her back and straight to the ground. I was like, damn it. I'm like, oh well, next time. So I went and got my arrow and took a fair bit of time, and this goat's up on the hill just trying to sneeze at me. What's it actually calling? What do they actually do?
Oh, yeah.
What is it like?
It's just a warning. What are you kind of?
No, what do you call that?
Oh, no idea. I just
Yeah,
call it
I
a goat
always call it
sneeze.
a sneeze,
Yeah.
Anyway, so she's doing
Or
that.
wheeze. Some people call it a wheeze. But
And I got my arrow, came back, we talked. No, we didn't talk. We came back and she just keeps going. I'm like, I've got a long box this one. And you're like, all right.
no, you asked me, like you need approval, and I'm like, sure.
And so I took it, and it was actually a very good shot.
Yeah.
But it was like perfect.
Pretty elevated.
Perfect elevation of where I need to get it to. It was just a little bit to the left of her.
Yeah, and at this point I didn't know you'd recovered your fox. So then you're like, look at this, and you walk over and there's the fox. So
Yeah.
I got a picture of you with that.
Well, I went to pick it up by the tail, and so this is all of what, 6, what would have been now?
Yeah, it'd be
It's about 1
sick.
o'clock by this time, so yeah, 6 hours, I'd say.
Of sitting in the full sun, near full sun. Yeah.
I don't know if it would have been full sun the whole time.
No, it was when you picked it up.
Yeah, and so I grabbed the tail, the whole tail slipped.
Yeah, hair slip was straight
Yeah,
off.
slipped, just come straight off. Obviously, that's, like you said, that's quite predators.
Common with carnivores, yeah.
Yeah, the parasites and stuff they carry and whatever else. Yeah, so the tail slipped, unfortunately. So the shot that we got of it was not incredible, but it was still good.
Well, I took a photo where that funky part of the tail, where you degloved it basically, was behind your arm. So, but it's a big fox. It's a solid unit.
Yeah, I was pumped. Probably one of the highlights of the weekend for me.
Yeah.
So high on my list for so long.
Yeah. No, and same. Like, I was super stoked to see you nail one finally. After seeing you miss that one at 4 yards.
Yeah, freaking hell. And so then the plan was from there. What were we going to do?
What time was that?
Well, I was just sitting in the nude in the ice bar. That's right.
Oh, that's right. We had a cold dip.
We were walking down to have the ice bath, and that's where
Yeah, better feed it.
that's when we saw the goats, when we were going to have an ice bath. And so we opted to go
Oh
for a
yeah,
stalk, and
that's right.
Jordy went and jumped in the ice bath instead. And so we went and had the ice bath, and that was incredible. It's how much it recovers your legs, how much it just puts you in a good mood, how much it stresses Adam out.
How much it makes my kneecaps jiggle.
You weren't in long enough to have the full benefits.
Oh yeah.
And then I can't remember what we had planned to do for the afternoon. We planned to go back to the other side where all the goats were.
Yeah, that's so we went over the back there and
Well, I was like, I want to have a proper stalk with my longbow if we get a shot. If we get some more goats.
yep.
I think, Jordy, you didn't have any arrows left, did you? No, you did.
Yeah, because you did recite your wheels to a degree, but it was defunct now.
Shooting right again. So when I get home, I can shoot
You can
my bow.
square it away, but it was defunct and parked for the rest of the trip. But so you took up the longbow, and then we just did that stomp over the hill, remember, and then down along to the dam. And
Yeah,
then,
we were driving. Then that's when we saw the. That's when I had my stalks, my goats, with longbow down the hill.
oh yeah.
So we've seen all of these goats out in the open, and there's no way.
Oh, that's right. So it was Friday night that we ended up down there, and we had to mission back up the hill before it got
correct.
dark. Yeah, that's right.
So I'm stalking. Oh, sorry. Found these goats. I said, "Do you boys mind if I have a stalk with a longbow? I'd love to get one." No, go for it. I'm like, cool. Give me 10 minutes. I'm sure I'll stuff this up.
Yeah, let's just set the scene here, right? So we're up on a basically it looks like it's been mown in a couple of days prior, and it's a nice flat spot, and then it just drops right down into like a dam/creek, and then it's just full open grazing. So timbered rocky hillside, and then just water body, and then open grazing. And so Matty's just gone basically full open, and you go from there because
I was like, well, there's nothing to cover me apart from the fence. It's like coming down to the fence, and there's still another 50 metres on from the fence. So I'll get down to the fence and see what they're doing. Originally, they were facing away from me, so my game plan was I was just going to open stalk and use their bums as my cover, essentially. But by the time I'd even got to the bottom of the hill, they decided they were turning around and they were all back facing me. So I'm like, well, the only thing I've got to do is sit down and slide along my bum and use the fence poles. So I got down to the fence poles, and that whole time, not one goat looked at me while I was sliding down in the shade. And there's tufts of grass, not heaps, but there was enough tufts of grass around that if any of them did look at me, I swear I would have just looked like a tuft of grass.
Yeah.
At least that was my hope.
Stuck with you right behind that solid fence post.
Yeah, I sat there for ages thinking, and that's when they started to actually turn around and come back. I knew they were going to come not to where I was, but to kind of where the gate was. And so it was like pretty much where I was. There was also a broken wire on the bottom part of the fence. So I laid down and stuck my way through. This is like how many wires do they have on those fences? It's like 7 wires, right? Something like that. But there's a lot, and they're essentially like the sheep fencing. So I snuck through on the very bottom, got my binos all caught up and stuff. I eventually got through, and just laying flat on my back, kind of like bum scooching across. It was almost like a bum shuffle, I guess, across the ground, and watching the goats the whole time. And every time they would head down feeding, I would just make an extra few meters if I could. And I had, say, 50 meters on from where the fence line was down to the end of the shadow. So I pretty much took it as far as I could to the end of the shadow. And we were both, it's almost like we're coming to a point together, me and the goats. And so we're coming up. We get to this stage where I'm like, okay, I'm going to get a shot soon. So I just sit up, I'm just sitting and waiting. And then eventually the goats come close enough, so I hop onto my knees, I draw back and take my shot, and it just went a little far forward than I wanted, and unfortunately it just got stuck, and I was like, the arrow just flagpoled this goat. It's run out into the middle of the field. I'm like, well, I can't run out with my bow. I probably could have if I really wanted to. In that instinct, I just thought like, this goat just needs to, like, I need to kill it. I need to finish the job as soon as possible. And the easiest way to do that is for me to run up and grab a gun and just quickly finish this goat while it's in the open. No, exactly. I'm like, you know what? To do the best thing and the right thing by this is to like just quickly end it. So I put the sprint on because the car's probably not even 100 meters away as the crow flies. So I run up, grab the gun, sprint back down, sit up on this log, and just bang, quickly ended this goat. I'm glad I did it that way because if I tried to chase it out in the open, it just would have been a forever afternoon, I think. And it just didn't look good because essentially I'd flagpoled this goat, and that's horrible as a feeling. Like the emotions that ran through my head, I felt like the worst person. It's funny because I've been shooting my longbow a lot. I've been actually pretty darn accurate with it, so I was feeling very confident at this point. But something you said to me as soon as I got to the top of the hill is, have you been shooting on your knees? I'm like, no, I've not at all. Funny that's just like such a simple change compared to standing and shooting, and how much of a difference that makes for you, right? I think just the leverage point that you have at your hips and what you can do with your maneuvering your top torso versus when you're on your knees. I mean, probably the adrenaline didn't help to sliding. I mean, I was pretty calm, but it just wasn't the outcome I wanted, unfortunately.
She's a textbook stalk.
Yeah,
that's the positive takeaway.
It was a positive,
and it was great for Jords to see from above like what you fully got away with.
Yeah. I mean, these goats aren't super pressured either, so that makes a bit of a difference for how much we. I don't know. None of them looked at me even. None of them even looked and said.
They were all grazing hard.
Yeah. They didn't feel under threat. So we did that, and we're like, okay, well, let's try and get you guys.
We went around and recovered him and took his back legs.
Oh yeah, correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Got the goat. Recovered back legs.
Because you poleaxed him with the rifle at the front.
Yeah.
And he was a unit. He was
big,
very
the biggest
heavy.
goat we saw all weekend.
Yeah, a lot of the ones up the tops were just like a smaller breed, but he was a solid unit.
So we went back and kind of got to the other goat hill where they had been very frequent, and we said, Adam, you're up. And so it's your chance to go up and chase this little nanny goat. What happened with that one?
Yeah, so it's a big ridge, and there's like half a dozen shrubs on it. There's nothing, and the sun's starting to set. So I've got a long shadow with the sun over my back. So I'm headed west with the sun behind me. And I remember when we stepped off, I said to Jordy, I'm like, look at that, we've got like 45 minutes of light left. And and so like I was like, well, I'll just make a fast play because we're all in this together. So I just double back, boogied around and just having to use the lie of the land basically. And she had a dot onto me, so and she had a kid with her, so I just sort of snuck up as much as I could. And yeah, I ended up a bit silhouetted because I ran out of shadow. There was a big tree, so I was in the shadow, and that's once I left that, it was sort of just total open hill face. But yeah, she moved around the hill a bit, so I tried to follow her up, but I followed her up because time was clicking. So, but she looked back, she did the snap back and got me, and I'm like, jig's up. And at that point, I looked down at the boys just to double check where they were, and then I looked back and I seen a pig, and I'm like, oh sweet, this might be a chance for Jordy to get his first pig. So I start boogieing down, and Matty's like, no, over there's more goats, and I could see them all.
Yeah,
but
I was like, stay at the top of the ridge, you'll have your height and go for it.
Yeah, but like with the time we had left, I'm like, by the time it'll take me 20 minutes to close, because they were like 800 meters away. Like by the time I get to there and then I get a 20-minute stalk, it'll be pitch black. So I'm like, let's go for this pig. And who knows, there might have been another pig I couldn't see. So me and George sort of really pretty much run, and then you're yelling at him.
I mean, you took off and Jordan didn't have the same hustle. I was like, Jordan, get up his ass.
I just been chilling on my phone for the last 20 minutes because we had reception up the top there.
Yeah.
And Adam's like, all right, come. And then he's like, yeah, go follow Adam. And so I was like, I was used to following them at a certain distance behind. So slowly going behind. And Matty's like, get up his ass. It's hard to get up there real close.
And I actually said, I'm going to bring the rifle out in case we see another deer, because we all wanted meat.
Yeah.
So you boys come around, you start stalking on this pig.
Yep. And then you're, 50 meters behind us?
Yeah, I just kind of stay back at the corner post, essentially.
Yeah, and so the way this played out, there was like a couple of folds and then the bottom of the gully, the drainage line. And so we got around, and then I got eyes on her, and I'm like, there she is, she's crossing over. So she was booking it out there. And then I look across, and I'm like, deer there.
Yeah, she ran down the valley,
yeah.
down the gully and up the gully, and just gave me it wasn't a perfect shot to start with. I was on the fence line.
I swear you were about to pull the trigger before she just went boom and just boosted off it for another second shot.
Yeah, she went for a little run to the side, and then I quickly shuffled myself, and then she did. She just gave me the perfect broadside shot, and pinned her about 150 meters, which is good.
Yeah, straight across the gully.
It was textbook shot in the sense of boomstick, what you want to do.
Yep.
And so that became our new mission: go and butcher and get it done.
Yeah.
So we butchered up. We had no packs on, so we had no game packs on.
Yeah.
So it just became how do we get this back to the car whilst carrying everything, and still try and do this all before the light.
Oh, that sky started getting peachy, and it was
quickly.
The sun had set at that point, and it's like we got no head torches. We need to make this happen. So we just hair on, just took the fronts and backs, yeah.
And back straps.
Yeah, back straps. And I took the heart.
Yeah.
I cut the heart out and I just stuck that in my neck socket in my pocket. And then, yeah, we just booked it out of there and basically got back to the car just in time.
It was, pretty much the very last light that you could use. And so we got back to the car and actually took the fur off and...
Yeah, we cleaned them up.
Yeah, chucked it in the game bag, and then as we were driving home, we had... Once again, another.
We had to stop at a gate, and then boom.
Just popped up at the gate as we were popping through. I'm like, oh, heck, we want the meat. So we took another shot. That was a headshot on that deer, which is awesome. So we knew we had great amount of meat. So
yep.
Took them down to camp and got them all.
Oh, sorry, just to interject. The first deer on day one, essentially, we hung that because the temperature was like a lower 4, top of 22, but it didn't really feel like that.
We're in a shady gully where we were
fully. So we had a couple of big ukes around camp there. So we hung up the gimbal and hung that first deer all night. So we knew we were going. We butchered. Actually, that's what we did in the middle of the day. We butchered the thing after we had our dip, and we had our celebratory rum.
That's right.
Yeah.
We did too.
And then just one, peoples. And then so we just already had the gimbal set up, so we hung that freshie up there. And that's when you started making dinner, and I took George over, and he got a lesson in how to fully gut a deer.
Yeah.
So he's all over that now. And then we got the heart, and we
Yeah,
ate the heart.
Heart is entree.
Two hearts,
Two
yeah.
hearts is entree from
hearts.
those 2 deer.
Yeah.
What was your first take on that?
Yeah, well, I thought it was kind of like, becoming a man type of thing. Where when I saw that heart, when Adam cut the first heart out and left it on the ground, I thought he was saying you're gonna have to take a bite out of this raw heart. I'm thinking, mate, what am I in for here? But,
I missed my opportunity there.
Yeah.
But yeah, mate, the way you cut them up and put it on the grill and cooked them, they were just beautiful. It's such a beautiful piece of meat, and it's it just really felt like again an honouring thing to the deer to say, like, we're gonna really take the best use of your entire carcass and enjoy it. And it was delicious.
It's such a tasty thing, right?
I'm a big fan of heart now.
It's kind of it's an interesting texture. It's almost like it's almost like spongy in a sense.
Yeah,
But very tender spongy.
tender spongy.
It falls apart in your mouth still.
I think a solid, well, other than the obvious many thanks to Josh and his generosity, but a solid hat tip for his little Weber.
Oh yeah,
That
right
is
up the street.
magic.
And I was about to say, open flame with any venison tastes incredible. Any
Yeah.
meat really tastes incredible.
Yep.
But in particular with the heart. So I literally just had Celtic salt and oil on it, and then it's the open flames that give it like that extra heart, just extra taste. And it's incredible, right? It's just so Moorish.
But I guess the anticipation was set because George knew I was salivating when I cut the first one out, and then we got 2, and I'm like, oh man, this is like,
what a treat.
Yeah, this is magic.
Yeah, and so we had that as our entree, and then we had steaks for dinner.
Yeah, and those steaks were mint.
Good eating. And then, so we hopped up this morning. The plan was to go out and just kind of have one last little hunt, see how we went.
No, we went for another little spotty straight after that.
That's right.
After dinner, we like, well, if we can get another deer down,
then we
that'll
just butcher
be
all
us maxed out, and then we'll just spend the whole morning butchering, and we bounced around, but there was nothing much about.
Yeah, Jordan fell asleep.
You both showed me what a full day of hunting was that day. I was passed out with my beanie over my eyes at about 8:30.
You did have a run when we got back to camp, didn't you?
Sure, I did.
Yeah.
But yeah, the legs, the body was definitely cooked. It's the hills that get you. I think.
Yeah.
The up and down constantly. We definitely walked you a fair bit.
Day one, everyone's toes were just smashed up.
Annihilated.
Yeah.
Yeah, that downhill with the shoes, it just cooks you so quick.
Yeah,
my
and
toes were
right
nuts.
above your knee there, where your quad joins on, that deceleration muscle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, this morning was meant to be. Essentially, we were just planning on doing a quick hunt because we were like, okay, we'll get out of there by 10 or 11 or so. So we hunted till 8.
Was it
No,
that
it
late?
wasn't that late.
No.
It wasn't that late at all. So we get back to camp. Not unsuccessful morning. We get back to camp and we're like, okay, we'll just quickly have breakfast and then we'll get butchering. And we've got
We've got a full deer
a full
hanging.
deer hanging. We've already butchered one.
We've got goat legs up the wazoo. What do we have?
literally
8 bags.
7 goats, I think it was.
So we had 8 game bags hanging up,
Yeah. Ready to butcher.
ready
so,
to sort out.
But then a lot of the goats we kept the skins on. You pretty much your one you had these.
No, I always, yeah.
But we kept all the ones that Jordy and I had shot. We had just put them in the game bags, like meat facing meat. So front legs together, back legs together, meat facing meat. So you're just not getting much hair on them. And that's purely for me. It's always just been a time saver thing. Do that, get back to camp, butcher them up. Because it was so cold, the meat was cool enough that you could hang it all weekend.
Yep.
That it wasn't going to be problematic. So we ended up just leaving them until today to butcher. And that was, I think, in hindsight, a mistake. We should have been doing that over nighttime more so.
Just so we didn't have such a big onerous task.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because we spent the best of 3 hours butchering. No,
Yeah.
probably more.
Yeah.
Was it? I don't know.
Oh,
Well, we had to pack up camp.
I don't
and
know.
Yeah,
everything
no,
else
it wasn't
as well.
3. Yeah, but
yeah.
it took us a
Collectively,
while
it was
because
4 hours. Yeah.
it was a big part of it was getting all the damn fur off it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we deboned a lot of it.
And as I said to George, it's so much easier when it's attached to the animal. It's
Yeah.
got this loose bloody leg on a table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Flopping all over the place, and you've got 3 people to the one table. So, anyway, we got packed up and out of there by 1 on the road.
Yep.
And,
Homeward bound.
but what an incredible weekend. Like you said, can't thank Josh enough. Josh said to me on day 1, because it was so windy, we hadn't really had that many stalks or anything yet when we saw him. He's like, oh man, I hope you guys get something. You could just see he was so excited for us to get on something. Man, did we?
Oh,
Man,
dude.
did we have a great weekend. Like, that was incredible.
Jord is spoilt for his first hit out. That's
Yeah,
for
it's
sure.
I'm not looking forward to. Well, it depends where we go for number 2, but mate, that was considering that was Matty's second or third best day of hunting. I feel very privileged to be able to get to enjoy it. It was an amazing weekend.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the best weekends I've ever had. Actually, I didn't think I'd enjoy it as much as I did, but just being able to hang with you boys, and I think it was really cool just to see even how different you two are. Like Matty, he's up and about, ready to go. He's charging ahead, still very eloquently, and stalks them really well. But like, he gets to the locale of where he needs to get to, and then starts to stalk, which I loved. But then also got to hunt with Adam for a little bit this morning, and it was nice, steady steps, slow hunting. Waiting, hearing, and I just think to have that experience of two really experienced bow hunters, but both very different in the way they approach and adapt and look out for things is really, really cool. And I think that's what brings such a uniqueness to the sport itself.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think, and I kind of pointed out to you, because Adam is a recurve hunter, and he likes to go slow because his opportunities has to be close as close can be. And so he needs the animal not to know that he's there at all. And obviously, I want the animal not to know that I'm there as well, but I'm a very aggressive in my approach. I'm like, stalk until we see the deer, then we slow down. Or stalk until we see the ghost, then we slow down. Which is not necessarily right or wrong. It's just always worked well for me. Versus for you, Adam, essentially, it's like, hey, there could be anything right here. So let's just slow right down and take all of the opportunities as they come.
Case in point, those goats I ran into on day one, and then the pigs at 6 meters. If only they'd made a grunt or something and given me an indication of where they were, I could have had an arrow on, and yeah, she would have been a...
Do you often stalk with your arrow
No.
I honestly, if I'm out there by myself, I will do it quite a lot, especially if I'm in an area where I know it's going to be.
Oh, if it's open.
Not even open. Oh, yeah.
Dude,
okay,
I was ducking
you're
under.
like stuck in the thick.
Yeah, dude, I'm on a game trail, ducking under all
gotcha.
that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if I'm in an area and I know it's like, it's the place where either there's been a lot of game before, like I've seen game there myself before, or it just, you know how you get to a location,
Yeah,
right?
it feels like,
like, this is a deer area. This is where you're going to find foxes. This is where you're going to find goats. That's where I'm like, okay, I'm going to put an arrow on in case the opportunity arises. I'm just kind of prepped and ready, just as an up your sleeve thing for listeners.
Yep.
Anything else, Jordy?
No, it was just an incredible weekend. I feel super privileged to be able to go out with you guys and experience what it was like. I knew I would enjoy bow hunting, but didn't realise I would enjoy it that much and embrace it that much and get amongst it that much. So I really appreciate you both taking me out and taking the time and being patient with me and getting me set up for my shots and guiding me through. I think without that, it wouldn't be as addictive as it has been. So you've converted a new bow hunter, that's for sure.
I think it's cool in the sense of just like that real fast tracking when you go out with someone, how much they can really provide you with as much knowledge. Like, essentially that's 6 years of bow hunting for me. And how long have you been bow hunting for?
Seriously, from about 2012, 2011.
So an extra 12 years, 12, 13 years of bow hunting from Adam. Just trying to cram that knowledge into your head within a weekend. It's like, it is a fire hose to the mouth, but still, the amount of stuff you learn in that one weekend is really powerful. At the same time, it's like, I'm intrigued now to see what sticks versus what doesn't based on the fact that we've learned this through mistakes. It's kind of like, the mistakes are what make you a better hunter, but we've just kind of fast-tracked you because we told you exactly what to do. So it's like, okay, how much does that now stick on you, then Jordy, moving forward?
Yeah.
Like, if you go and do your own hunt now, how much of that retains? And before it, like, or do you then have to go and make those mistakes to make it stick the same way that it stuck for us?
Yeah, I think I'd have the basics down packed just in terms of like the approach and take the time and how to set up and how to structure the day and all that sort of stuff. But I think at the end of the day, there's always small things that you'd forget and make mistakes on along the way. And I think it's not until you make those mistakes 2 or 3 times where you go, all right, bloody hell, I've got to stop doing this now, and learn from them.
Yeah, fist bump to you too, dude, because you've basically just had an accelerated learning curve and just been thrown into it, and you've just stepped up to each of the challenges, and that's everything from stomping up them bloody hills to calming your mind. Like, you're obviously a fast learner, so yeah, it's really good. It was good to see you go from 0 to experienced basically case of 2.5 days, really.
Having some goats down.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was pretty confident, especially once Josh told us how much game he kind of had around. Like, I'm pretty sure that we're going to get you some goats, Jordy. Like, I'm almost certain we can make it happen. And it was just cool to actually watch it unfold and all come to fruition.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I wasn't expecting much. I was just expecting to tail you two all weekend, but you made it happen, and I got plenty of opportunities, plenty of shots. So yeah, I'm super thankful.
I think one of the highlights of the weekend, obviously being up on top of the hill, was awesome. But when you when you sat down at camp, I think it was on night 2, and we're having dinner. You're like, boys, I honestly think this is one of the greatest weekends of my life. That was like very fulfilling, very satisfying for me. I was like, fuck yeah, that's so cool.
Well, it's the whole combination of, like, I've always loved camping and getting outdoors, but you got an element of that, but also you're with two really great blokes who, you know, love and embrace life. Then you've got elements of hiking up and down mountains. And then you got all your gear and all your kit and bow, and then you go bow hunting and you hunt something, you stalk something. It's primal. On top of that, you're cutting it up and taking your meat back to camp and wrapping it up. So it's not just camping, it's not just hiking, it's not just hunting something or, you know, driving around in a car trying to find something to shoot. It's the whole experience and the whole element, and I think when you tie all of that together, it's what creates such an incredible weekend.
Yeah, I'm also excited now on the other end of it, because obviously bow hunting itself is a hard act, and once you get meat down, you're like, okay, this is incredible. But then when you shoot an animal, you then learn how hard the butchering side and that processing side is. I've gone through and done all of that, so the next part is the enjoyment side, where you get to now share it with your loved ones. And that's actually a very satisfying feeling when you're sitting down to have a meal, especially if, like, yes, to you like your wife and your daughter, but if you ever have it for, like, let's say you have your family over, like everyone over, or you're having like friends over or something, and you're able to say, oh yeah, this is goat that I bow hunted, like, it's actually a very very rewarding. Yeah, exactly. I provided for this whole experience. It's really cool.
Yeah, my sweat equity and my boot leather got this.
Yeah, exactly. My sore toes.
Yeah.
Oh, you
My
just
achy shoulders.
appreciate the whole process a whole lot more. Like, we just tucked into Woolworths on the way home, and you walk in and there's, you know, everything at your fingertips in terms of meat and everything else like that. And you really go, you know, what we did was just really back to basics. You really feel primal and feel like, you know, you're hunting for your own food rather than just going to the store and buying whatever crap you could find, you know. And I think that's just such a different experience.
Definitely. It's very interesting going to masterminds like the one that I met you at, Jordy. One of the biggest things that many business owners come across is that they don't have enough play in their life or enough adventure in their life. Like, it's all just work, business. I mean, that's the same for many people, but it's just a common thread that came across some of these these masterminds we went to. I'm so grateful that I've come across bow hunting in particular, spearfishing as well, surfing, because there's like all these things that bring me back to play and just bring me back to primitive nature and make me feel like you work your absolute ass off and you just feel, I'm going home so fulfilled. Essentially, so I always say my cup's full after a hunting trip. I go home and I'm so excited to see my family, but I'm also like going home just in a better mood from everything we've just done from weekend away, and untapping and enjoying nature and getting to see that whole side of it. But it's just very interesting that you do come across many, and I think it's not just business owners, it's people in life in general, where we just get stuck in the do rather than the, oh, hold up, how do we enjoy our life and how do we make sure that we're
Balanced.
not just working to live.
Balanced, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it just gives you a whole different perception as well. Like, you know, up until then, I'd never really, like, I'd fished and, you know, cooked up fish and all that sort of stuff, but it just takes you back to what life really is. It's not, you know, hustling and bustling and slaving to, you know, pay the bills, or, you know, getting stuck behind video games and, you know, getting stuck on the couch all weekend. It's actually about getting out there, and just takes you back to, you know, well, this is how you used to catch your food and cook your food, and how they used to have to live life. And I think it just changes your perspective on life altogether.
Yeah, definitely. No, super sick, and I'm glad that we could all make it happen this weekend. It was honestly, yeah, like I said, yesterday was probably one of my top 3 best hunting days. Like, I was so pumped on how the day went, just that we all had multiple opportunities, that there was just so much game about for us to witness and wonder, and just those close encounters are so surreal still to me. Even I've been doing it for 6 years, and I just love those close encounters where you really get to kind of monitor the critter and see how they react, and every time it's different, which is just, it's awesome.
It's magic stuff.
It is. Plus, I got my fox.
Yes.
Bingo, baby. All right, thanks, boys.
Hooroo.
That wraps up this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining us, team. If you did have any topics, questions, or you wanted to suggest a guest for Becoming a Bowhunter, you can send me an email at matty@becomingabowhunter.com. If you are enjoying the show or you've enjoyed in particular episodes, please do me a solid and share it around with your friends. If you are not already, please hit the subscribe button, as the more subscribers we get, the higher the podcast gets ranked, and that definitely helps out for showing it to other individuals. If you are not already following me on Instagram, it's at becomingabowhunter.podcast, and on YouTube, it's Becoming a Bowhunter. Get out, team, fling some arrows, get that practice in, and walk those yards in the paddocks until you find those critters. That is it for now, but not the last time that you'll hear from Becoming a Bowhunter.